snowflakes danced outside as Sarah, stood in our warmly lit living room, admiring the Christmas tree that Michael and I had decorated together. Its lights twinkled like little stars, casting a magical glow on the laughing faces of our friends. The scent of pine and freshly baked cookies filled the air, mingling with the sound of joyous chatter. Michael, my ever-charming husband, was in his element, moving through the crowd with a tray of drinks, his laughter as heartwarming as the crackling fireplace. I watched him with a fun smile, my heart swelling with love. Among the guests was Ryan, Michael's colleague, who always had a way of capturing my attention. His easy smile and sparkling eyes drew me in every time. We had always shared a flirtatious banter, innocent yet thrilling. As I chatted with friends, I could feel Ryan's gaze on me. Our eyes met and there was a silent understanding, a spark that we both felt but never acknowledged. I quickly looked away, the warmth in my cheeks not entirely from the fire. The evening progressed to the festive spirit enveloping us all. Michael, ever the perfect host, was too engrossed in his duties to notice the stolen glances between Ryan and me. Then unexpectedly, Michael announced he had to run an errand. "Won't be long," he called out, his voice full of cheer as he left, trusting and loving, as always. The room suddenly felt quieter, the air charged with unspoken words. Ryan approached, his presence overwhelming. We found ourselves alone in the living room, the only witnesses to our conversation, the flickering fire, and the twinkling tree. "I've always wondered," Ryan began, his voice a soft murmur, "what it would be like to what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, "to be more than just friends." He finished, his eyes locked with mine. In that moment, the line we had never crossed seemed to blur. We were swept up in a wave of forbidden emotions. It was wrong. I knew it. Yet the thrill was undeniable. Our laughter and conversation grew more intimate, the crackling fire echoing our rising emotions. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, our moment was interrupted. Michael returned, his arms laden with gifts, his eyes shining with love for me as we exchanged presents. My heart ached with guilt. The joy of the season was shattered by the secret we now shared. The festive lights and decorations seemed to mark my inner turmoil. This Christmas, I realized, would be remembered not for its cheer, but for the secret that now lay hidden like a sparkling shadow under the tree as the night drew to a close. Our guests departed, leaving behind a silence that was both comforting and haunting. Michael wrapped his arms around me, his love as warm as the fire that still burned. I looked into his eyes, my heart heavy with unspoken words. This Christmas had changed everything. The secret we harbored would eventually come to light, but for now it remained hidden, like a delicate ornament on our beautifully lit tree. The morning after the party, the world outside was a serene white canvas, the snowflakes having painted everything in a peaceful hush. I sat at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, but the warmth it offered did little to soothe the turmoil within me. Michael hummed a Christmas tune as he made breakfast, his back to me, watching him. Guilt knotted me. He was oblivious to the storm that had started to brew in my heart, a storm kindled by a moment of forbidden passion. My thoughts were interrupted by a ping from my phone. It was a message from Ryan. "Yesterday was unforgiving. Get table. We need to talk." My heart raced and I quickly typed a response, my fingers trembling slightly. "Can't." It was a mistake. Michael turned, his smile as bright as the morning sun. "Who's texting so early?" he asked, his voice light. "Just a friend," I lied, feeling the weight of my deceit. Later that day I found myself alone in the town's quaint coffee shop, the scent of roasted beans mingling with the sound of soft chatter as I sipped my latte lost in thought. The bell above the door jangled. My heart skipped a beat as Ryan walked in. He spotted me and headed over, his gaze intense. "Sarah, we need to talk about last night," he said, his voice low. I glanced around nervously. "Ryan, this is not a good idea." He sat down, his proximity sending a jolt through me. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed, his eyes searching mine. I felt a dangerous thrill at his words, but fear quickly followed. "Ryan, please, we can't. I'm married to Michael." He leaned closer, his voice a seductive whisper. "Does he make you feel like I do? Does he ignite that fire inside you?" I pulled back, the reality of the situation hitting me. "This is wrong, Ryan. We can't do this." He reached out his hand briefly, touching mine. "I know it's wrong, but it feels so right," he murmured, his touch sending shivers down my spine. I quickly stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I have to go," I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I hurried out of the coffee shop. I could feel Ryan's eyes on me, burning with a desire that mirrored my own. The snowy streets seemed to echo my conflicted emotions, a blend of purity and hidden turmoil. Back home, Michael greeted me with a warm hug. "Cold out there, isn't it?" he said, his love enveloping me. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. The secret of my encounter with Ryan heavy in my heart. The festive decorations around us seemed to mark my inner chaos that night as Michael and I lay in bed, his arm wrapped around me. I couldn't help but feel the distance between us. The physical closeness only accentuated the emotional chasm that had begun to form my mind. Replayed the moments with Ryan, the temptation. The dangerous older sleep eluded me as I wrestled with my conscience. The betrayal wasn't just about the physical attraction, it was the emotional connection that scared me the most. I was torn between the comfort of my life with Michael and the thrilling unknown that Ryan represented. The snow continued to fall outside each flake, a reminder of the purity I had once felt in my marriage. Now that purity was tainted, obscured by the shadow of my betrayal. The days leading up to Christmas felt like a blur. Each moment with Michael was tinged with the guilt of my secret, and every encounter with Ryan was a dance on the edge of a forbidden precipice. The festive cheer around me felt like a masquerade, hiding the turmoil within. One evening, as I was finishing up some last-minute Christmas shopping in the town's brightly lit streets, I felt a presence behind me turning. I saw Ryan, his breath forming clouds in the chilly air. "Sarah, we can't keep avoiding this," he said, his voice urgent. I glanced around the twinkling Christmas lights casting shadows on our faces. "Ryan, please, this isn't right. I can't do this to Michael." He stepped closer, the intensity in his eyes making my heart race. "But can you live with this longing, this electric connection between us?" I looked away, feeling trapped. The snow underfoot crunched as I took a step back. "It's not just about what I want, there are consequences, Ryan." He reached out, gently touching my arm. "I know, but I can't stop thinking about you. It's like you're under my skin." I shivered. "Not entirely from the cold. You need to stop this. Whatever this is, it can't happen." As I turned to leave, Ryan caught my hand, pulling me back gently. "Just one coffee as friends, please, Sarah." The word friends echoed in my mind, a bitter reminder of the line we were crossing against my better judgment. I nodded. "One coffee," I agreed, my voice barely a whisper. We found a quiet corner in a cozy cafe. The warmth, the stark contrast to the cold outside. Sitting across from Ryan, I felt a dangerous sense of intimacy. "So tell me about yourself, Sarah." Beyond the Christmas parties and the happy marriage facade, Ryan prodded, his gaze unwavering. I hesitated, then found myself opening up about my dreams, my fears, things I hadn't even shared with Michael. Ryan listened, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that unnerved me. As our hands brushed while reaching for the sugar, a spark ignited between us. We both pulled back quickly, but the air was charged with unspoken desire. "I should go," I said abruptly. Standing up, Ryan stood as well, his expression conflicted. "I know this is complicated, Sarah, but I can't help how I feel about you." I walked out into the cold night, the snowflakes gently falling around me. I felt as if I was walking away from a part of myself, a part that yearned for the excitement and passion that Ryan offered. Back home, Michael greeted me with his usual warm smile. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, kissing me. I forced a smile, feeling the stark contrast between his innocent affection and the complex emotions I harbored that night as I lay beside Michael, his steady breathing, a lullaby in the quiet room. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie. The snow outside seemed to mark my inner conflict, its purity a stark reminder of the tangled web I was weaving. My heart was a battleground, torn between the safety of my marriage and the thrilling, dangerous allure of the unknown with Ryan. The days leading up to Christmas were a whirlwind of emotions. Each interaction with Michael felt like a performance. My smiles and laughter forced masking the turmoil within. My thoughts were constantly drifting to Ryan, to our stolen moments, the charged conversations, the unspoken desires. One frosty afternoon, as I was organizing decorations in the living room, my phone burst. It was a message from Ryan. "Can't stop thinking about our last talk. Meet me at the old bridge tonight." The very thought sent a thrill through me, dangerous and enticing. I knew I should ignore it, but the temptation was overwhelming. "Okay," I texted back, my heart pounding that night under the guise of needing some fresh air. I left the house. The cold winter air beat at my skin as I made my way to the old bridge, a place of many childhood memories. The snow crunched under my feet, the sound echoing in the silent night. Ryan was there, leaning against the railing, his figure illuminated by the soft glow of the street lamp. "Sarah," he greeted me, his voice a mix of relief and desire. "We shouldn't be doing this," I said, my voice trembling. "I know," he replied, stepping closer. "But here we are." The proximity to him was overwhelming. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell his cologne mixed with the crisp winter air. It was intoxicating. "Sarah," he whispered, reaching up to brush a snowflake from my hair. His touch sent shivers down my spine. "I can't fight this feeling anymore." I looked up into his eyes, seeing the raw emotion, the longing. My resolve was crumbling. Ryan died before I could finish. his eyes reflecting the same turmoil that was raging inside me. I pulled away, the reality of what we were doing crashing down on me. I have to go back, I said, my voice barely audible as I walked back home. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, guilt, desire, fear, excitement. They all blended into a confusing mess. What was I doing? How had things escalated so quickly back home? Michael was waiting, his face etched with concern. Is everything okay? Sarah, you seem distant lately. I forced a smile, hating myself for the deception. I'm fine. Just tired. I lied, feeling the weight of my betrayal even more. That night lying beside Michael, I couldn't shake off the guilt. The memory of Ryan's kiss burned in my mind, a reminder of the line I had crossed. I was torn between the life I had built with Michael and the exhilarating yet dangerous connection with Ryan. The snow continued to fall outside, each flake, a silent witness to the turmoil in my heart. I was lost in a dance of forbidden desires, a dance that threatened to destroy everything they held dear. The following days were a blur of conflicting emotions. Each morning I woke up next to Michael, his peaceful face, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. My heart ached with guilt, yet my mind kept replaying every moment with Ryan. Each stolen touch, each whispered promise of forbidden passion. Late one afternoon, as I was lost in thought, Michael approached me. Hey, you've been really distant lately. Is everything okay? He asked, his brow creased with worry. I forced a smile, pushing down the guilt that threatened to overwhelm me. Yeah, just holiday stress. You know, he studied me for a moment, his eyes filled with concern. If there's anything, Sarah, you know, you can talk to me, right? I nodded, feeling the weight of my deceit like a physical burden. Of course, I managed to say, turning away to hide the tears brimming in my eyes. That night as Michael slept, I found myself unable to rest, slipping out of bed. I walked to the window, watching the snow gently falling in the moonlight. My phone vibrated, a message from Ryan lighting up the screen. Meet me, same place, I need to see you. I knew I shouldn't, but the pull was irresistible. Dressing quietly, I slipped out into the cold night, the snow crunching under my feet, a silent accomplice to my betrayal. The old bridge was deserted, a solitary figure standing in the moonlight as I approached. Ryan turned his eyes, meeting mine. I couldn't stay away, he said, his voice a mix of desire and desperation. Neither could I admitted, my heart racing. He stepped forward, closing the distance between us. Sarah, what are we doing? He asked, his breath a mist in the cold air. I don't know, I whispered, lost in the intensity of his gaze. He reached out his hand, caressing my cheek, sending a shiver through me. I want you more than I've ever wanted. Anything, he confessed, his voice husky with emotion. The admission ignited a fire within me, a fire I knew I should extinguish, yet yearned to let burn. I leaned into him, our lips meeting in a kiss that was both a confession. And as soon as we broke apart, the reality of what we were doing hit me. Ryan, we can't, I said, stepping back. There's too much at stake. He reached for me, his touch pleading. I know it's wrong, but when I'm with you, nothing else seems to matter. I turned away, the internal battle tearing me apart. I need to thank Ryan. I need time. Walking back home, the snowflakes seemed to whisper of secrets and lost paths. The decision before me was tearing me apart. The safety and love of my marriage with Michael, or the wild, untamed passion I found with Ryan back in bed. Michael stirred as I slid under the covers. You okay? He mumbled sleepily. Yeah, just needed some air. I lied, my voice barely audible. He wrapped his arm around me, his warmth a bittersweet comfort as I lay there, the weight of my choices heavy on my heart. I knew I stood at a crossroads. One path led to the life I had always known, comfortable and familiar, the other to a world of unknowns, passion and danger. The snow outside continued its silent dance, each flake a reminder of the delicate balance of my world now hanging by a thread. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in our home became strained, an unspoken tension hanging between Michael and me. He sensed something was off. His attempts at conversation met with my distracted responses. The gap between us widened, fueled by my guilt and secrecy. One evening, as I sat staring at the flickering flames in our fireplace, Michael came and sat beside me. Sarah, we need to talk, he said, his voice serious. I turned to face him, seeing the worry etched on his face. What is it? I asked, my heart pounding. It's us. He began, taking my hands in his. I feel like you're slipping away from me. Is there someone else? The directness of his question took my breath away. I wanted to deny it, to reassure him, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I sat there in silence, my guilt screaming inside me, Michael's. I searched mine, looking for an answer I couldn't give. I love you, Sarah. I just want to understand what's happening. Tears welled in my eyes, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. Michael, I begin, but the words caught in my throat. At that moment my phone buzzed, a message from Ryan. I need to see you tonight. Michael saw the phone and my reaction. Is that him? He asked, his voice breaking. I couldn't lie anymore. Yes, I whispered the word, feeling like a betrayal. Michael stood up, his expression one of hurt and disbelief. I can't believe this story. After everything I reached out to him, but he stepped back. I need some time to think, he said, his voice hollow before leaving the room. I sat there alone. The weight of my choice is crushing me. I had risked everything for a fleeting passion, and now the consequences were all too real. Later that night, I met Ryan at the old bridge, the cold winter air reflecting the chill in my heart. Michael knows, I said, as soon as I saw him. Ryan's face fell. What are we going to do? He asked, his voice laced with worry. I don't know, I replied, feeling lost. This us? It's not just fun and games anymore. It's real and it's hurting people. Ryan took my hands in his. I care about you, Sarah. I didn't expect to feel this way, but I do. I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity in them, but also the reality of our situation. I care about you too, Ryan, but I can't destroy my marriage. I can't hurt Michael like this. Ryan nodded, a look of resignation on his face. I understand. I never wanted to cause you pain. We stood there, the silence between us filled with unspoken words and shared regrets. Finally, I turned and walked away, the snow underfoot echoing the coldness I felt inside. Back home the house was quiet. Michael's absence, a stark reminder of the damage here, caused. I sat in our bedroom, surrounded by memories of a happier time. And what for? Why I had lost. The snow continued to fall outside, each flake, a testament to the fragility of love and the pain of betrayal. The days that followed were the longest of my life. The house felt empty, the silence a stark contrast to the warmth and laughter that once filled it. Michael had moved to a friend's place to clear his head, leaving me alone with my thoughts and regrets. I tried reaching out to him, but my messages remained unanswered. Each passing hour, a reminder of the chasm my betrayal had created. My heart ached for the love we shared, for the life we built together, now crumbling under the weight of my indiscretion. Rand kept his distance, respecting the space I needed to sort through the chaos. The fleeting moments we shared, once filled with passion and excitement, now felt like echoes of a mistake, haunting me with what could have been and what should never have been. One chilly evening, as I sat looking at our wedding photo, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped, hoping it was Michael. But as I opened the door, I was met with Ryan's somber face. Sarah, we need to talk, he said, his eyes reflecting a sadness that mirrored my own. I nodded, leading him into the living room. We sat across from each other, the distance between us more than just physical. Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Ryan began, his voice steady. What happened between us? It was wrong. We got caught up in something that should have never started. I looked down, the truth of his words cutting through me. I know, I whispered. I never meant to hurt Michael or you. Ryan sighed, running his fingers through his hair. I care about you, Sarah, but I can't be the reason you lose everything. This needs to end for all our sakes. Tears filled my eyes as the reality of his words sank in. I understand, I said, my voice breaking. I never wanted any of this to happen. We sat in silence, the unspoken emotions heavy in the air. After a moment, Ryan stood up. I think it's best if I transfer to another department. Put some distance between us. I nodded, unable to speak the finality of his decision, a bitter pill to swallow. Ryan walked to the door, pausing briefly to look back. Take care of yourself, Sarah, he said softly before leaving. The door closed behind him, leaving me in a house filled with memories and regrets. I realized then that the affair was not just a betrayal of my marriage, but also a betrayal of myself, of the values I held dear. Days turned into weeks, and slowly I began to pick up the pieces of my broken life. I focused on my work, on rebuilding my sense of self, on understanding the choices I had made and the consequences they brought. Finally, one day, Michael agreed to meet me. We sat in a quiet cafe, the air between us filled with hesitation and hurt. Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking, Michael said, his voice calm but distant. What happened? It changed everything. I can't just pretend it didn't. I swallowed hard, my heart aching. I know, Michael, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. He nodded, his eyes not meeting mine. I believe you, but the trust, it's broken. I need to find a way to move on. And I think it's best we go our separate ways. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I knew he was right. I understand, I managed to say, fighting back tears. You deserve to be happy, Michael, and I need to find a way to forgive myself. We parted that day with a sad finality. The end of a chapter in our lives. The snow outside had stopped, leaving behind a world that seemed clearer yet colder. As I walked home, the emptiness of the streets nearing the emptiness in my heart, I realized that this was not just an ending, but also a beginning. A painful yet necessary step towards healing and finding myself again. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it was a journey I needed to take alone.